What is going on YouTube? Marcel here, and today I'm gonna help you to remove the traction control assist from your F1 2021 game experience. So I'm gonna help you switch from full to medium, or from medium to off, or from full to off, or from medium to off, whatever you wanna do. Whatever feels more comfortable for you in the first place. But in the end, we want to get to the point where you can all drive without traction control. This is the main thing and purpose of this video, and I'm trying to break it down as much as I can. So first of all, taking it away, this is gonna take time, and nothing is a shortcut, but this is the blueprint. If you use this blueprint, you're gonna get there. And it's really simple. It's just a thing that you have to get used to. So first of all, we're gonna use the default setup just so you can see I'm using exactly what you guys can also use. No setup tricks, no nothing. If you want to change something on the setup to help you improve traction big time, it is probably gonna be the wing balance. If you have less front wing and more rear wing, you will have a more stable car, and with that also better exits. But you have to find the right balance. You cannot just be off exit focused. You need the corner rotation, as you have seen in the traction control video. Corner rotation is everything, like on power rotation. You want as much grip as you can, but you also don't want to sacrifice the grip that you can get. The next thing is on throttle differential. This is gonna make a huge difference, especially when you go onto the power. Also off throttle matters, but not for the power. It's literally just when you brake, which will make it also a bit more tricky under braking when you don't use traction control, like the in-between phase. I would recommend use something between probably 55 and 58, something like that to begin with. If you're a bit more experienced, you can probably go to 53, 54, 55, something in that range. That is more or less what the pros use. And also with the on-throttle differential, I recommend something between 90 and 100 at all times, just so it makes it a bit easier for you to get that better exit. But if we want to talk about the differential, this is another video. I just want to help you out with what is going on. But we are gonna stick for now with this, and we're gonna change the brake bias because brake bias is really annoying. You're just gonna lock up all the time if you leave it on stock, and I'm gonna put the diff to 100 just so you can see what I mean. Yeah, maybe we're gonna start off again with full traction control, just so you can see. We're gonna set a default setup and traction control time, just so we have a reference and I can show you. So on the full traction control, of course, there's like, you don't have to be careful on the throttle. It's literally just slamming the throttle. It's super easy. Like, look at this. If I go now out of this corner, full throttle, nothing's gonna happen. Watch out. I'm literally full throttle through here. And just as an example, if I go back to that point, and I quickly switch the traction control off, so it's on off now, so you can see what I mean, like the difference between traction control and full traction control, just so the point where we want to get. I cannot go full throttle without traction control. So I'm standing still, I'm going full throttle, you can already hear my rear spinning and I'm drifting, and it's all loose and stuff. So you cannot go without traction control, full throttle, and that's the magic. Like, instead of doing this here, you could see the throttle inputs. Always look at the throttle inputs in like the middle of the screen next to my kilometer per hour thingy. Like the green bar is important. Instead of doing this, we are gonna do something like this. We still had a bit of wheel spin, but you regulate the throttle. This is literally what a traction control does. It limits your RPM, and you control your RPM with the throttle. So we have to get a feel for the throttle inputs, and that's what we are gonna do. So first of all, if we go from full traction control, which we're gonna use now, to medium traction control, what do you have to look out for? I will quickly set a lap time. We'll probably cut that a bit shorter with full traction control, so we have a reference lap. Man, this is so slow. It's incredible. It literally, you can hear how the engine is bogging down because the game is limiting you. And that's exactly what we want to do, but we have like unlimited range. Like at least unlimited within the span of the engine and power we have. And we are gonna do it with our own foot. That's the magic, and that's where the time is. We gain the big lap time. You can even use lower gears, no issues, no wheel spin. That's also a thing that I will talk about when we are going to traction control, how to minimize as much wheel spin as you can. Like what kind of tricks I can give you. Oh man, but we're gonna take that lap. It's anyways against default Ghost, so it will still work. Alright, so there we go, and that is a 127.5. So we're gonna work with that. Now we're gonna switch it to medium, and now I'm gonna tell you. So with traction control, of course, you don't have to learn anything. It's pretty straightforward. Big assist, big help. And now we're gonna look if we can get any wheel spin in first gear if we stand still, because I don't think we can in any way. But maybe I'm wrong with that. Let's see. Oh, you actually get a bit of wheel spin, but you can see it still regulates. So with medium traction control, you have to regulate the throttle a tiny bit more, but you get also a bit more rotation. It's actually weird. It's literally, it is traction control off, but as soon as you snap, it corrects it. And that makes it really unnatural. So actually, I don't recommend using medium traction control. If you cannot use off, then yeah, go and use it. But this feels really odd, like it gets you a lot of corrections on the steering wheel. Probably also works your tires a bit more. Like in a race situation, that's awful. But we are already gaining time, of course, because we are less restricted. But pay attention to my throttle, the throttle inputs. And you will, I looked at the delta, but you can see that I'm trying to regulate the throttle a bit more. You don't really have to, you can still go full throttle, but you will lose more time. So if you really want to max out the medium traction control, you still want to drive like you have no traction control. So basically, look at the throttle, you want to do these things, like smooth inputs. Smooth, like progressive motions on what you're doing with the throttle. That is key. That is literally as simple as it gets, and of course accelerating in a straight line will minimize everything. Then also, aside from that, you just want to like be a bit more gentle. You will build up that muscle memory over time, but if you're not like feeling confident enough to go from full traction control to none, then please use medium, because it's literally like full, just a bit looser. I don't really think you can spin more than without traction control. Just needs you to be a bit more gentle. If you're on keyboard, then don't use no traction control, because you can literally not regulate your throttle. At least from my experience. That's also an invalid. Yeah, in the high speed sections you don't really have to regulate your throttle. Usually you're quite aggressive on the input, as you should, because these cars have high downforce and there's so much grip you don't have to worry about it. And after this lap we're gonna go to the big step, which is of course going to no traction control. This is where you actually learn the most. And also for the medium traction control runners, I would heavily recommend you watch the no traction control part, because that's where I'm gonna get into a bit more detail. So now we are here. No traction control. If you drive like you would with our traction control, I will show you what happens. Probably all of you made the same experience, and it's, well, quite easy to happen. You spin. And the issue was, I was too aggressive on the throttle. Like, please make sure you pay attention to my throttle input. You don't need to see my pedal. My pedal, like you can imagine the green bar as my pedal. If I go on 5%, I'm pressing the pedal 5%. It's like my foot is literally making these small motions. And when I hit 100, I'm at 100 of the pedal. So, yeah. Like, look at this. If I go aggressive, you can see on the green bar, I spin. Okay? But if I go smooth out of these corners, it's gonna look like this here. No wheel spin. You have to get a feeling for that. And what I would generally say in these cars, let's have a look out of the slow speed corners. I think in the medium speed corners, like for example the final few corners, you kind of always want to start. Like you go to 50% of your throttle, and then you slowly, with opening up the steering wheel, that's the thing. If you steer too much, look, another thing. If you steer too much while it's accelerating, you're gonna spin even more. Because you want to have the wheels as straight as possible. That is all friction and lack of grip that you have. The front wheels are the first thing to give you the direction. Like, look, if I turn like this, I spin, okay? Spin way easier. But now when I would do this a bit more straight with the steering wheel, even though we're not gonna hit the racing line there, if I have my steering wheel completely straight, you can barely spin, right? You could see that. You can correct it more. But if it's already like at a quite aggressive angle, you will probably and most likely go and spin out because it's just too difficult. Let's demonstrate this one more time. Here, it's just really hard to read. If you get to that point, it's really hard to tell what's going on. Like, these corrections are nearly impossible. And that's like why you don't see F1 esports drivers spin, because we try and open the steering wheel as early as we can. That's a big mistake actually from a lot of people. Like, you might steer like this, you think you would steer more, but it doesn't work like that. You get a bit more understeer in that case, and then also at exits with this, you just spin out. Because there's no grip from the front end. You want grip on all four tires, even though the rear is accelerating, and that's where you want the most grip. If the fronts also don't bite, then there's just no way of making this. So, but now let's have a look. So pay attention, out of all, especially turn 3 and 4 and left field, at my throttle. Like in some higher speed corners, you probably can already go to 75% throttle and you're not gonna worry. But in this here, look at 50%. You don't have any issues. 50%, then slowly accelerating. This is always the procedure. 50% and don't oversteer too much. Get a bit more like of an understanding when to open the steering wheel. That's all a thing of patience and training. Can also help watching track guides. And now look, we are opening the steering wheel and we are accelerating. It was probably also more like 50%. It's the same in every corner where you have to lift off the throttle, brake or something like that. You always have to be a bit more gentle. Like for example, in these corners you can see we have so much grip. We sometimes literally just smash the throttle. Like here, we lift, go back on the throttle, no grip issues. Back on the throttle, no grip issues. Simple as that. In these corners we don't have any trouble of getting the power on because of the downforce of the F1 cars. Here the same thing, early on the power, enough grip. Now we brake heavy, hit the inside, go to 50%. As soon as we hit the grip, that's it, right? Done. Done. Focus on this magic 50% of throttle initially. If you really don't get a feeling for it, try and go to 50% of your throttle. If you need a bit less, and slowly progress to understanding where the limit is, and then you build up gradually. From the 50%, you cannot just limit to 100. You still have to get a feeling of progressing, and that progress can be a bit quicker depending on the corner type, and can be a bit slower depending on the corner type. Another thing which helps usually, like for example here, if you You can, of course, take this here in third and then fourth because the RPM makes sense, right? Sounds like you can do this and shift then to fifth. And yeah, you can get a good exit, like we did right here. But what you can also do is, what I personally like doing, might not work on the default setup as good right now because it's quite stable. Short shifting into fifth, because it like wheel spin is all about your RPM. That's it. The main thing about wheel spin is your RPM, and that's where you build up the throttle, the whole engine is working with the turbo and all these kind of things. And you can minimize the RPM, like let me show you. If I take this corner now in 8th gear, look at my RPM being at 5k or 6k. I don't have any traction issues, right? It's kind of acting like a traction control. So I don't want you to go into 7th or 8th gear or anything here, but sometimes going 1 gear higher and then being earlier, more aggressive on the throttle. Look at this. If we go now here, 4th, 5th, and now a bit more aggressive on the throttle, we might even get a better exit here. Look at this. We're actually gaining a bit more time than before. Now let's have a look here. We can also go into 3rd gear here. 4th for a bit more grip. You can hear the engine dip. Early 4th, so we have a bit more grip. And we gain time. And that's the thing that you need to do to maximize your speed also, especially love field. That's the thing that I want to show you. Probably not as visible on the default set, but look, this is a bit more tricky if I take it in 4th gear. If I now go and short shift into 5th on the exit right away, like quick short shift, you will get so much grip. 4th, 5th, I can barely spin. Makes it so much easier, more consistent, and nearly as quick. It might limit you a tiny bit in lap time, but in 99.9% of the cases, this is not going to lose you anything because you're just going to be more confident, more stable, and it's just going to make your life a whole lot easier. So use short shifts to your advantage to minimize wheel spin only at corner exits, or between the corners to focus on the exit. Like here, 5th for a bit more rotation, and 6th, even though you, you don't need it. And then here the same procedure again. 3rd, 4th already at the exit, 5th, and then we accelerate. It's as simple as that. These are the kind of things you want to look out for. The first thing is, aim for around, like corners where you have to go a bit slower, aim for around 50% of throttle. Start with, because these cars build up a lot of grip. Depends of course on how much you have to steer. If it's a bit more, lower it a bit, and if you still spin, lower it a tiny bit more. Kind of find that kind of sweet spot, that, let's say, throttle bite point. There's the clutch bite point, you can call it a throttle bite point for yourself. Where you like start this kind of build up from the throttle. You want a starting point. If you start at 0, that's the only thing that you nearly do at the start, and even at the start, you don't have the same kind of build up. You don't go from completely 0, right? You go from 0 kph, but you kind of already build up the RPM, and then you go into first. There are also short shifting to second helps, and then you are progressive. Did you see that? There you don't go for 50. If you go for 50 here, you get a wheel you will get a wheel spin because you start from 0. You hear that? So for a start, you kind of aim for, like, I know, something like that. Just within the RPM range that Codemasters recommends, doesn't really matter where. Then you go into first, and then it's all about that throttle buildup to avoid wheel spin. With traction control, you don't have that issue, but you have it without. And it's the same in corners. You go a bit to 50 and then you progress a bit slower. Like there's an initial bit where you go a bit quicker and then you go slower. This final bit is like the fine detail, and the bit before is where you can technically just smash the throttle to, let's say, your 50% is for a second, the 100% where you can just go at without any trouble, and then from there on you have to regulate it a bit further up. And building it up, you will get gradually to like closer to the limit. But you shouldn't stress yourself. It will take time. Guys, this can take weeks, for some maybe months. For me, fortunately, it didn't take that long. But it's all individual. Don't put any pressure on yourself. If anyone is like mocking you for that, don't listen to them. I think it's awesome that you even want to try and make a change, because it will make you your whole immersion into the game a bit better. Like it's just nicer to try without traction control. The real life drivers do it, and it's just, it takes a bit more skill. Makes it like the things that take a bit more skill are also more rewarding if you nail it. So even if you slow down a bit at the beginning, at the end you will gain more time and it will be more satisfying if you accomplish that thing. You know, try it out and don't give your hopes up. It will take some time. So in summary, first thing you want to do, 50% throttle. In most cases. Then slowly build up the throttle to 100. In high speed corners you don't have to worry. At the start you have to go lower than 50%, maybe even just less than a quarter of the throttle bar. Open your steering at exits. You want to accelerate as straight as you can to avoid spinning. And use short shifts. Those are the main 3 things that you should look out for. I want to keep it as basic as possible. So the steering thing should come natural. So just focus on that initial bit with 50% and then maybe short shift. 1 gear, maximum of 2 gears. That's it. If you feel like you're losing time by short shifting, don't do it. But I can say it will help you out. And you should definitely try it. It's a thing that we do commonly in esports, because there's so much grip available if you short shift and it's just more consistent. So don't be afraid of trying around, even if it's ridiculous gears. You will see it on the time trial delta, on your personal bests in qualifying or wherever, if you're losing time or not, or even if you're racing. If you go into a higher gear having a worse exit than anyone else, you will get a feeling for that. But definitely go and give it a try. Let me know about your progress and don't let anyone like discourage you. You can do that. I believe in you and we will make this together. There will be more tutorials to come also for ABS and whatsoever. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button, the bell, so you don't miss out on anything. Thank you so much for the support. Honestly, we made the last 28 days, I don't know how many subs. We went from on the 3rd 22k to the 10th 25k. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate you and I will see you in the next video. Take care everyone and